your release day. It's the day you've been counting down towards since the minute you walked in through those gates. It's all you've been fixated on that whole time. For many, it's a day when you're going to get back out to family, friends, your loved ones' arms, get back out to real life, maybe go back to work, put the prison system behind you, those mistakes you made, never to come back again. For a lot of us, it was what they call the revolving door of a prison. The shortest time I spent out was about 24 hours, and the longest was about 6 months in my 10-year time of coming in and out of prison. So I had a few release days, so I'll give you my insight and experiences of those times now. So from a kind of just a factual point of view, on your release day, they'll come and get you earlier than they unlock everybody else. So it'll be before 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe just before, between 7:30 and 8. You'll hear them come and jangle the keys and look through the flap, and then they open the door. You'll all already be ready to go. You've probably been up since about 4 or 5 in the morning, pacing the cell. Your cell's going to be pretty stripped bare by now because you would have given away all your posters and any bits of prison items that you didn't really need or want. Everything luxury would have gone, all your food and treats and things, and it's just you stood there in your prison blues with a see-through bag, waiting to get out of there. They come and get you. You may go and knock on a few doors and just say see you later. Or I used to do all that the night before, say all my goodbyes, and then just try and make a clean break in the morning. You go off, you head down. You see the staff just starting to come in and start their day. Now, obviously, these guys don't mean fucking shit to you anymore. Their power and authority is gone. You're a member of society from 9 o'clock onwards. It's a weird sensation. It's like the last day of school, and suddenly the teachers aren't your teachers anymore. They're just anybody else. They'll take you from your wing down to the reception. Now the reception in prison's obviously where they keep all your kit and shit, and actually no, all your stuff it goes off to a storage somewhere. I always used to thought it would stay in the prison, but if you're doing a long time, then they send all your clothes and all your stuff that you came in with off to a central sort of warehouse place, and it gets sent back, a few weeks before you get out. You head down to reception. You go and pick up all your kit. Put your clothes back on that you came in with. Sometimes they may still be, blood stained if you've been fighting when you came to prison. For me, obviously, they'd be sometimes the clothes that I'd been given at court to change into. When I'd taken my little suit off from being sentenced, and they'd smell like home. So they might smell of your aftershave that you used to wear because they've been in a sealed bag, so they're pretty, they're pretty airtight. They'd still smell of your aftershave, and they'd still smell like the laundry at home that you haven't smelt for a long time. All your clothes smell like prison. Everything just stinks of an institution. It's like anything else where you get hundreds and thousands of people going through the place. It just has just an average dirty smell. And you don't realise that, you smell like that, the place smells like that, your clothes smell like that because you're ready. You've been in there for so long, you don't really realise. You put your kit on and you go and sit in another little room and you wait for everybody else who's getting out on that day to be processed. Now, you could be the only person getting out, or there could be 5 or 6 others. They'll process the sex offenders before you. And let them out first. They give them a head start. So again, if you're, if there's 5 or 6 sex offenders getting out, then you might be waiting till 9, half 9. There's no obligation for them to release you first thing in the morning. You can be released any time up until about 5 o'clock. I think they just have to give you enough time to get home for your probation meeting. But obviously most prisons do let you out just first thing in the morning. There's no need for them to fuck you around too much. But yeah, if you're slow getting out, it can sometimes be because there's a lot of people getting out. Now, when I used to get out from Dartmoor, there's obviously, transport links are a bit sparse. So what they'll always do is they'll always take you down to the train station, and the prison will have a little minibus that they'll run you back and forth in. It was that was always your first taste of freedom, is that little minibus. You jump in and you got your bag of stuff in your clear HMP prison bag. and you head off on your merry way down to the train station, and then they just literally open the door and kick you out. Now, for me, that was always Plymouth train station. It's a busy little thing. It'll be about 9 o'clock by that point, maybe 9, half 9, and I'd go and buy some snacks from the train station shop. Sit there just looking around at the bustling people going past, and I've mentioned before in my diary podcast, it's odd just being sat there and no one really cares who you are or what you're doing. Nobody, our lives aren't intertwined in any way. People just come and go, whereas I've just spent maybe the last 18 months, 2 years sat on a wing where everyone is in everyone else's business and you live in each other's pockets. And now I'm just sat here out on my own again, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Really, just having all that sensory, all that sensory stuff just thrown at you when you've had literally no stimulation for the last for the last however long you've been in there. If you've got family or friends that are coming to pick you up from the prison, they'll let you out slightly earlier. So as soon as you've been processed, they'll just walk you out the door then. So that always used to be preferable to having to wait around. And then you're out. You're a free man. You can do what you want. Now, most of the time they give you a probation date. The first day you get meeting, the first date you get out, and you'll have to go and see them. Now that's the first hurdle really. You've got to navigate, because a lot of people want to have a beer on the train on the way home. You might want to have a little puff of your drug of choice as soon as you walk out through those gates. A lot of drug dealers hang around outside prisons to catch the people coming out and give them that first hit. It's a dangerous little path, because when you get to probation, if they smell alcohol in your breath, or if they see that you're intoxicated in any way, they can breach you and send you straight back to prison. Luckily, that never happened to me, because I was always smart enough to just wait at least that first first couple of hours before I started getting on it. But that was about as sensible as I ever was when I got out of prison. Now, I got out of prison a lot of the time on parole conditions, so they'd always have to have somewhere for me to go, and because I was always terrible at sorting out that sort of thing, accommodation was always my biggest problem. So I could never from prison sort out somewhere to live. My family didn't really want to know me. My friends were all, drug dealers and things like that, so they didn't suddenly want me coming and living with them. Telling parole that that I'm living, the probation side, that I'm living with these guys wouldn't exactly get me parole anyway. So I'd normally be going out to a probation hostel, which is just full of fucking the dregs of society. Half the time it's got about 5 or 6 nonces in there, if not more, and you've just got to fucking live it. You'll have a curfew, so you're not allowed out before a certain time in the morning, and you're not allowed. You've got to be back by about 11, I think it is, at night. Sometimes I'll say you can't drink because I'll have alcoholics in there and stuff, and obviously you get drug tested and things while you're there. So there's so many hurdles that you've got to navigate. Going from prison where everything was taken care of for you, to then suddenly be thrown in a place where you've got to you've got so many rules and restrictions and impediments on your life, when really you just want to be free and you just want to make the most of being out. So I always found that really troubling, having to stay in those fucking places. But I generally got out of them pretty quick, because once I was out, I could sort out somewhere to live and a job and things quite quickly. But it was just staying out that was my problem. So the build up to your release day is a bit odd in prison, because the time starts to slow down, obviously, in those last few months before you get to go home. The whole prison process changes as well, because they start to look at you a bit more, as in they want to get you ready for going out in the community. So you'll have there'll be resettlement courses and things that you go on, and also if you're in a Cat D prison, or if you've if you manage to get a decent representation, then you can sometimes get home leaves towards the end of your sentence, but they're really rare in general population. You have to be on a Cat D wing really, or in a Cat D establishment to get home leaves. Now, when I was on the resettlement wing, I managed to get myself a couple of home leaves, and because I was being trusted, I was going out of the prison to work. I was going out every weekend into the local town. So why not give me a home leave? My first home leave was 3 days, 3 days, 2 nights out of prison, and I went clubbing both nights. It was great. My second home leave was, I think, 5 days, and that was brilliant. It's just great to get to kind of be out of prison and just spend time at home and around family and friends, and just having normal food and just doing normal things. It wasn't too much of a shock to my system because, like I say, I was on the resettlement wing, so I was going out all the time anyway. But it was just nice to not have to clock back into the prison at any point. But if you haven't been on any kind of wing like that, so then you haven't got that experience of going out before you just get thrown out of prison. So it can be really daunting. And I remember a couple of times it being a bit of an anticlimax getting out because I was getting out to nothing. The one time in particular was that time when I did the shorter sentence that I only got 1 year. So by the time I got to the end of the sentence, I hadn't been selling drugs in prison. I hadn't really been doing anything. So I got out with about 50 quid to my name and no fixed abode. And I just remember the prison reception staff, obviously when they see, no fixed abode as your release address. And he kind of just asked me what my plan was and where I was going to go. And I genuinely just looked at him and said, I've got no idea. And my only plan that day was to just maybe go and see a friend and maybe, see if I can stay on their sofa that night. And then I'd have to try and work out a plan for the rest of the time. But bearing in mind, I was also pretty tunnel visioned on going and kicking in the fucking door of the person who grassed on me. So I ended up back in prison. That was the time I ended up back in prison within 24 hours because not only did I have nowhere to go, but I also had no plan. So I just went straight back round to this guy's house who grassed on me and put me back in prison. And I went to go and kick his door off, but unfortunately he wasn't there. I was seen at the property and the police were called again, and I ended up getting taken back to prison. That was my shortest ever time out, and it was completely my fault. Obviously as all the times were. All my prison sentences, nothing, I was never arrested or sent to prison for anything I didn't do. There was very few people in prison I ever met that were in there for something they didn't do. There was only 2 of them, in fact, in the whole 10 years. And one of them was an armed robber, and he got accused of a crime, but he was actually committing another crime at the time, which weirdly. So they found evidence of obviously his gun being fired, and residue on his clothes and things, but it wasn't for the robbery that they caught him for. He'd been doing a different one. But he ended up getting something like 12 years for that. And then the second guy was on the resettlement wing with me when I first went down there, and he'd been convicted of rape, and he denied it the whole time, and he actually ended up in the papers because he got he didn't get his charges overturned the whole time he was in there. He did his time, he got out, and then it was after then he got his sentence overturned. There was obviously evidence that the girl had lied, and he hadn't done it. And he got something like 50 grand or something. I can't remember if it was even that much. It might have been about 20, 30 grand. But yeah, he got massive compensation for fucking being accused of rape and doing all that time in prison. Disgusting. Like, it's, obviously it's so difficult to tell, who can, the majority of the time women are not deceitful about this, but there are just a few who make that up, and it just fucking ruins people. I bet there's many do it as well, but bloody hell, yeah. So anyway, we've strayed far from release day, but it's that day that you just look forward to. There's nothing else. It's like fucking every prisoner's birthday, Christmas, and an orgasm all in one. It's it's that chance to just reinvent yourself and get out. And everybody always has plans of being, I'm going to stay out of crime, I'm going to stay away from drugs, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Most criminals, most offenders end up back in prison within 2 years. So a lot of it is just talk, hot air, and empty promises. A lot of people have the best intentions. A lot of the time I got out of prison thinking that I wouldn't end up going back, but I didn't really have any intentions of not committing crime anymore. I just had a hope that I wouldn't end up back in prison again. A lot of people end up overdosing when they come out of prison because, their drug of choice was, something they could handle when they were out. And now that their tolerance has gone right down, a normal hit of heroin is enough to wipe you out, And more than once I've heard about guys dying in the first 24 hours of getting out. There was one chap I even knew, I was on the resettlement with him, and I think he did about 7 years, and then died within months of getting out. It's crazy. But these things happen, that's life. So yeah, release day. Like I say, it's the best day. It's a chance to reinvent yourself, a chance to get back out there amongst it. And for many of us, the first step back towards coming back to prison. Thank you very much for listening. Cheers.